I just started this new show that's basically The Parent Trap, but with it being about these two people who are identical and swap places and fly across oceans to a different country and meet each other for the first time. Oh my gosh, what the... Okay, so maybe not exactly like The Parent Trap. They're not twins. One's a robot, and they're not swapping places to meet the parent they never knew. Well, one of them isn't. So the show isn't exactly The Parent Trap. What this show is, though, is about a robot who is an exact replica of a human and trying to pass himself off as something he's not. And I find that interesting because that's largely what the show itself is trying to do. It is an incredibly formulaic script trying to pass itself off as something interesting, provocative, and emotional, but it's not. Not really. I was highly anticipating this show for a couple of reasons. The first is the budget for it, which was about 20 billion won or 9.3 million US dollars, making it one of the most expensive K-dramas ever to shoot. And if you've already seen the first episode, you can really see that they put that money to good use, specifically with the special effects. I was genuinely impressed by how good the robot aspects looked, both with how detailed the design was and how realistic it looked. I was also interested in it because it was completed before airing, an anomaly for K-dramas that is becoming more and more common, which I firmly believe is a good thing, and want to support. The third reason is because of the lead actors, who have both given fantastic performances in two of my favorite K-dramas. Kang Seung-yeon's portrayal of Eun Yi-soo in My Shy Boss helped give the frigid bitch archetype a lot of depth, and turned her into a person whom you could understand and sympathize with. So Kang Joon as the tempestuous Becky No from Cheese in the Trap created one of my favorite characters, period. A loud and confident character that was also exceptionally caring. He was multifaceted and endearing, arguably to a fault. It's a shame they never finished that show. Real shame. But then I started the show and right away with this.
며느리 손자로 절대 인정 못하신 데서 한국 땅 떠나 조용히 살고 있는 우리한테 갑자기 왜요?
죄송합니다.
This is such a tired and old K-drama trope that I haven't seen hardly at all in the past couple of years. And the kid of course grows up to be a jerk, like all sons of giant corporations, especially when told they're against his will, which I guess is understandable, but hard for me not to roll my eyes at anymore. I kind of worried about this, but I had hopes that So Kang Joon would be able to bring some depth to the role, but that didn't happen. Granted, there wasn't a lot for him to work with, and it seemed like he was trying, but it just, meh. And him being a jerk also made the training scenes even weirder than they already were. Like, Aurora just happens to have this virtual simulator in her tiny little beautiful, dear God, I want to live there, house? I had just assumed this was happening in his head because robot, but I guess this is just cooler? Or maybe makes him feel more human, which isn't really necessary? I don't know. But him learning how to be rude like that was a tad silly.
뭐하러 왔어? 돈 떨어졌니? 너 우리 집에 붙어있는 거 돈 때문이잖아.
돈 때문에 붙어 있는 건 고무잖아.
기.
고모님 애한테도 똑같이 까칠하고 삐딱하게.
Wow, my son's a dick. That's cool. Or maybe it's not cool, because after her real son is put in a coma and she sends her robot son to Seoul so she can care for the human one, after only a few days she pieces out to check on her robot son? Like, your son who got taken away from you, whom you love so much, who you built 3 virtually identical robot versions of, is lying in a coma back in the Czech Republic, and you get bored within a matter of days and fly on back to Seoul to check on your robot son. Makes sense. And Kang So-bong is the character who is the same cookie-cutter tough girl who is righteous and in-your-face and super rude, but justified, and more caricature than anything. I mean, they're all pretty caricature-y in this show, actually. And it's hard to buy that when she finds out that Nam-shi knew the whole time that she was taking secret photos of him and set her up, that she was more mad that he slapped her even though he already knew, than that her friend helped him set her up.
본부장이 지 쓰레기 코스프레 하려고 일부러 몰카 찍게 한 거라고.
조 기자, 당신도 내 인생에서 아웃이야. 끊어!
Except this doesn't stick? She just roundhouse kicks her and then they're back to being besties? Maybe this betrayal thing isn't uncommon for them. That they kind of stab each other in the back and that's their relationship, which is why she's not terribly upset. But that's not set up at all, and it doesn't make sense that she gets over it so easily. And that presentation scene was pretty painful for a couple of reasons.
자율주행차에 사고가 날 때는 어떻게 해야 될까요?
사고요.
갑자기 그렇게 불리한 하면 어떡해요?
Thank you for that commentary. I would never have figured that out, what with the shocked faces or, you know, common sense. The lie detector in his hand is also, eh. Especially since the sign that someone is lying is winking, which isn't weird or conspicuous. I get wanting a sign so the audience knows, but it's weird and distracting and lazy writing, honestly. Also the fact that Kang So-bong just, you know. That's that's not ridiculous, over the top, or a terrible way to make sure your reputation would be fixed. Which is, after all, the whole reason you're there! And the fact that when she starts crying out of anger and he hugs her, which is kind of a cute rule I mostly like, she's perfectly fine with it and isn't mad at all. What also gets me though is that she flinches when he starts moving because she thinks he's going to hit her again, which really just proves that Kang So-yeon is too good for this role. I'm also kind of torn about the ending for episode 4 when he unburies her and picks her up and she starts talking about heartbeats like they can both hear it. Like there's no way either of you could hear the other's heartbeat, you know, unless one of you is a robot with that special skill. I don't know, maybe she's delusional from breathing too much smoke. And the general fact that she's now attracted to him rubs me wrong. I know that being rescued by a big, strong, handsome man is a fantasy for a lot of women. I've got my own fantasies, no doubt. But it's hard for me to go along with it when it's the same guy that hit her, ruined her chances of ever working in her chosen field, though she did do that to herself but still, and never actually apologized for anything. Just hugged her in front of a bunch of people and reporters because she cried. I just can't believe in the attraction she might have for him at this point. However, I could see it growing into something in the future, and depending on the angle they go with the romance, it could be subversive and really good. Namshin is an arrogant jerk, but Namshin III has proven to be built much kinder and more thoughtful, although they both have a take-no-prisoners way of teasing people.
넌 말이야, 오로라 박사하고 내가 함께 나온 어떤 마음의 아이라고 할 수 있지.
오로라 박사는 데이빗과 아이 만들 생각이 전혀 없어요.
너 또 이래봐. 똑같이 생긴 로봇 만들어서 걔만 예뻐할 테니까.
괜찮아. 나도 아빠가 더 좋으니까.
Which is entertaining. And so far, Kang So-bong's romance is set to be with the robot, and that could lead to a gender swap of the typical jerk guy being softened by the sweet and moral girl. Because Kang So-bong is not a good person. She used her job to sell photos of the person she was supposed to be protecting for money, blames him for her inability to find a new job even though she was at fault, and her own actions are why she can't find a job, and is an arrogant jerk to people she doesn't know. I know for me, if some stranger came up to me, took something of mine out of my hand, and told me what I was doing was wrong in the same manner she does to that girl, I'd probably be more likely to do exactly what she told me not to do out of spite because that's incredibly disrespectful. Namshin III, on the other hand, buys flowers for his mom, is willing to travel to a new country so she can be with her son, and hugs people when they cry. This could be an interesting role reversal, but given that he's pretending to be the human Namshin who has a bad attitude and goes around hitting people, I don't have the confidence to expect that, especially given the sheer number of tropes that pop up in the first few episodes, which include rich grandparents still small child from mother once father is dead. Rich kid grows up to be a jerk. Rich guy is excessively jerkish and abusive to the main girl in a public way. Main girl in dire straits. Rich guy has terrible family members. Someone in the company wants him gone so he can take over his place. Horrible other woman. Look at her being aggressive and confident. She sure is a strong and independent woman. Main girl sees soft side of rich guy and is suddenly attracted to him. And that, at its core, is my big problem with this show so far. Not that it's bad, but that it's an amalgamation of almost every K-drama cliche you can find in the beginning of a show. And cliches make stories and characters feel flat and unreal. So for them to work, a creator has to put in a lot of effort to establish depth and a sense of realness, but the creators for this show just kind of slap them on. What makes this even harder to watch is that both the leads have been in shows that have wonderfully deconstructed some of these tropes, so it just feels very regressive for it not only to exist, but these faces to be attached to it. But I guess that's human nature. A lot of popular media has a sense of homogeny to it because we like things that are familiar. That's why there are shows that keep popping up like this one that are huge callbacks to older formulas. Because most K-dramas have moved away from that to explore different stories and different ways to tell stories. Who knows? Maybe this show will become more original and be great. Maybe it's setting itself up to be a giant deconstruction of the K-drama formula as a whole. Maybe the two Namshins will come together and hatch a scheme to get rid of the interloper and bring their parental figures back together again so everyone can live together and have a happy ending. The possibilities are limited.